The sophomore year dorm room in Halligan Hall was exactly 12 feet by 15 feet, a concrete box that smelled faintly of instant ramen, damp wool, and expensive Sephora perfume. It was a battlefield of conflicting aesthetics, a physical manifestation of two brains that should not have worked together. On the left side lived Alexa, a neurobiology major whose life was categorized in Muji notebooks, color-coded Google calendars, and a rigid skincare routine that she performed with surgical precision. Her bedding was oatmeal linen, her desk a minimalist shrine to productivity, and her primary emotion was a buzzing, high-functioning anxiety that hummed beneath her skin like a refrigerator motor. On the right side was Chloe. Chloe was a fine arts major who treated her side of the room like a living, breathing collage. There were tapestries hung crookedly, half-finished charcoal sketches leaning against the wall, and an alarming amount of thrifted velvet clothing, creating a floordrobe that seemed to migrate daily. Chloe existed in a state of vibrant, chaotic neutrality. They were a randomly assigned housing algorithm disaster. Alexa liked silence, Chloe liked shoegaze bands playing on a loop, Alexa woke up at 6 a.m. for spin class, Chloe considered noon an aggressive start time. And yet, by mid-October, they had moved past the polite, "Do you mind if I turn the light off?" phase into the comfortable, intimate silence of coexistence. Alexa found Chloe's inability to locate her own keys endearing rather than infuriating. She started leaving a spare set on Chloe's desk without saying a word. Chloe found Alexa's intense focus when studying organic chemistry strangely soothing, a grounding anchor in their shared space. The shift happened slowly, buffering like a slow-loading video until suddenly the picture was crystal clear. It started with the rotting sessions. On Sunday mornings, hungover from academic stress or actual parties, they would drag their duvets onto the floor, creating a mega bed between their two twin XLs. They'd lay there for hours, creating a cocoon of blankets, scrolling phone to phone and sharing TikToks that didn't require verbal explanation. During one of these sessions in late November, the heating in the dorm had cranked up too high. Chloe rolled onto her side, propping her head up on one hand, her dyed ginger hair falling over her eyes. Do you ever feel like everyone else got a handbook on how to be a person in their 20s, and ours got lost in the mail? Chloe asked, her voice raspy from sleep. Alexa, staring at the ceiling and counting the glow-in-the-dark stars Chloe had stuck there, felt that familiar tug in her chest. It was the feeling she got when Chloe perfectly articulated something Alexa was too repressed to say. "Bold of you to assume I'm even operating as a person right now," Alexa murmured, turning her head on the pillow. "I'm mostly just caffeine and existential dread in a trench coat." Chloe laughed, a loud, uninhibited sound that bounced off the cinder block walls. She reached out and poked Alexa's cheek. A very cute trench coat, though. Alexa froze. The air in the small room suddenly felt very thin, charged with static. Chloe didn't retract her finger immediately. It lingered, warm against Alexa's cool skin. Alexa turned her head just an inch, and their eyes locked. Chloe's eyes were green, with little flecks of gold that Alexa had never noticed before, despite living 3 feet away from her for months. The moment stretched, taut like a rubber band pulled to its limit. Alexa's heart hammered against her ribs, a traitorous rhythm. "Don't," her brain warned. "She calls everyone cute. It's her brand. She calls the barista cute. She calls the campus squirrel cute." Chloe blinked. The moment broke, and she rolled onto her back. "Anyway, I'm craving tater tots from the dining hall. Let's go." Alexa exhaled a breath she didn't know she was holding, but the dynamic had shifted. The dorm room felt smaller. When they brushed past each other in the narrow walkway between their beds, the accidental contact felt electric. Alexa found herself analyzing Chloe's Spotify activity, wondering if that sad playlist titled Longing was about anyone in particular. Chloe found herself sketching Alexa when she wasn't looking, capturing the sharp line of her jaw when she was concentrating on her flashcards. The tension simmered for weeks. There was a night they watched a horror movie, huddled together on Alexa's bed, and Chloe had buried her face in Alexa's neck during the jump scares, her breath hot against Alexa's skin. There was the time Alexa helped Chloe dye her hair in the communal bathroom, her hands deep in the red dye, massaging Chloe's scalp, while Chloe hummed, eyes closed, leaning back into the touch. But the breaking point came during finals week of the fall semester. The room was a disaster zone of empty Red Bull cans, eraser shavings, and charcoal dust. It was 3 a.m. on a Tuesday. Outside, a nasty mix of sleet and snow hammered against their single window, rattling the frame. Alexa was spiraling. Her biochemistry notes were blurring in front of her eyes. She had read the same paragraph about enzyme kinetics 6 times and retained nothing. The pressure from her parents, from the department, from her own perfectionism crushed down on her. A sob escaped her before she could clamp a hand over her mouth. It was a jagged, ugly sound. From across the dark room, there was rustling. Chloe's fairy lights flickered on, casting a soft, warm, amber glow over the mess. "Alexa?" Chloe's voice was thick with sleep. "You okay?" "I can't do this," Alexa whispered, putting her head in her hands. The tears started coming fast now, hot and humiliating. She hated crying. She hated losing control. "I'm not smart enough for this major. I'm going to bomb this final and lose my scholarship." Chloe didn't offer platitudes. She didn't say, "You'll do fine." Instead, she climbed out of her bed, padded across the cold linoleum floor in her oversized graphic t-shirt, and sat on the edge of Alexa's bed. She gently pried her hands away from her face. "Hey, look at me." Alexa looked up, her eyes red-rimmed and swollen. Chloe looked soft in the fairy light, her usual chaotic energy replaced by a fierce, protective focus. "You are the smartest person I know," Chloe said, her voice low and steady. "You know more about the Krebs cycle than I know about my own mother. You explain things to me in your sleep. Your brain is incredible, Alexa. It's just tired." Chloe reached out and brushed a tear from Alexa's cheek with her thumb. Her hand rested there, cradling the side of Alexa's face. Her palm was rough from charcoal and paint, but her touch was agonizingly gentle. The world outside the dorm room, the exams, the snow, the future, ceased to exist. There was only the hum of the mini-fridge, the sound of the sleet, and the terrifyingly loud thumping of Alexa's heart. Alexa leaned into the touch, her eyes fluttering closed. It was an unspoken admission of how desperately she needed this comfort. When she opened her eyes again, she realized Chloe wasn't looking at her eyes anymore. Chloe was looking at her lips. The unspoken rule, the "don't hook up with your roommate" rule, the sacred text of college survival, evaporated into the dry heat of the room. "Chloe," Alexa breathed, her voice barely audible, shaking. "Yeah?" Chloe whispered back, leaning in just a fraction. Her gaze flicked up to Alexa's eyes, asking a silent question. Alexa closed the gap. The first kiss was tentative, a hypothesis tested in the dark. Is this real? Are we ruining everything? Chloe answered by threading her fingers into the hair at the nape of Alexa's neck and pulling her closer. The kiss deepened, becoming less tentative and more desperate. It tasted of mint toothpaste and late-night tears, and the sudden, overwhelming relief of finally crossing a bridge they had been standing in front of for months. It was messy in the best way. Alexa was half crying, half laughing into Chloe's mouth. Chloe climbed fully onto Alexa's narrow twin bed, straddling her lap to get closer, knocking a heavy biology textbook onto the floor with a loud thud that neither of them acknowledged. Every emotion Alexa had repressed for the last 3 months came pouring out. It wasn't just desire, it was a profound sense of homecoming. Chloe kissed her like she painted, with enthusiasm, with texture, covering every inch of space. Her hands were everywhere, tangling in Alexa's hair, gripping her waist, grounding her when she felt like she was floating. Alexa gripped the back of Chloe's t-shirt, pulling her down, needing to feel the weight of her. The anxiety that usually buzzed in Alexa's veins went silent, replaced by a rush of endorphins that no spin class could ever replicate. When they finally broke apart, gasping for air, their foreheads rested against each other. The room was spinning. "Wow," Chloe breathed, her eyes wide in the dim light, her lips swollen. "Yeah," Alexa managed, her brain completely devoid of biochemistry facts. She couldn't remember her own middle name, let alone the periodic table. "Wow." A beat of silence passed, the reality of their situation settling in. "So," Chloe said, tracing the line of Alexa's collarbone with a paint-stained finger, a small, mischievous smirk playing on her lips. "Does this mean I can borrow your noise-canceling headphones whenever I want now?" Alexa let out a wet, startled laugh, wiping her eyes. "That's your main takeaway from this? Negotiating shared assets? Gotta establish the parameters of the new relationship dynamic," Chloe grinned, though her hands were shaking slightly where they rested on Alexa's shoulders. "Also, does this mean we share the skincare fridge?" "Don't push your luck," Alexa murmured, but she was smiling, a real, genuine smile that reached her eyes. She pulled Chloe back in. The second kiss was slower, deeper, an exploration rather than an explosion. It was soft and lingering, full of promises they hadn't spoken yet. They spent the rest of the night curled up in Alexa's twin bed, tangled together like a knot that didn't want to be untied. They whispered about everything and nothing until the gray light of dawn started to creep through the window. They talked about the fear of ruining their living situation, the anxiety of coming out to their other friends, and the absurd reality that they had both been pining for each other since October. "I thought you were straight," Alexa confessed into the darkness, her head resting on Chloe's chest. "You have that poster of Timothée Chalamet." "Timothée is an artistic aesthetic, not a romantic goal," Chloe scoffed, running her fingers through Alexa's hair. "I thought you were straight. You have a planner." "Lesbians can have planners," Alexa protested, laughing. "We'll work on it." Chloe kissed the top of her head. The next morning, they walked to the dining hall together in the blinding snow. The campus was quiet, hushed by the storm. They didn't hold hands, not yet. The campus felt too exposed. But they walked close enough that their shoulders brushed with every step, a secret Morse code of contact. Alexa felt exhausted. She was still terrified of her upcoming exam. She was anxious about what this shift meant for the delicate ecosystem of room 312. But as they stood in line for coffee, and Chloe launched into a deeply animated story about a weird dream she'd had involving a penguin and a spatula, gesturing wildly, Alexa looked at her. She looked at the paint smudge on Chloe's chin. She looked at the way Chloe's eyes crinkled when she laughed, and she felt a surge of warmth that had nothing to do with the radiator back in the room. The dorm room was still 12 by 15. It still smelled like ramen. Alexa's side was still neat, and Chloe's was still a disaster. But when they got back that afternoon, before they retreated to their separate corners to study, Alexa grabbed Chloe's hand. She pulled the chaotic art student in for a quick, fierce kiss in the middle of the room, right on the border where the oatmeal linen met the velvet floordrobe. "Good luck studying," Alexa whispered. Chloe beamed, dazed. "You too." It was messy, it was complicated, and for the first time in her life, Alexa didn't need to plan what happened next. She just knew she wanted to be exactly where she was.